On this episode, we talk about church, disabled people, and how we all need each other.
Hello and welcome to TGI Monday. This week we've had a question come in through our website, tgimonday.show, and it comes from Noel Heather, who asks, is a church without a disabled person a disabled church? Great question, Noel. I'm going to come to Zoe, who I know has thought about this quite a lot.
Once or twice, and emphatically, definitely. If church is a group of people coming together to seek God, then it's ludicrous that that shouldn't include people of all different abilities, because actually that's what it is to be a person, isn't it? We've all got lots and lots of different abilities. And so often people think the disabled, they're thinking wheelchair. Yes. But actually this stuff it's actually not about who's not coming into church, it's also about who's already in. Yeah. Because as we age, we become more frail or disabled. There are so many invisible disabilities, but at its core, if we as a group of people who are trying to follow God and see our lives in a pattern of Christ's life, then we are absolutely not complete. Like that bit in the Bible from Corinthians where, you know, the church is a body, as in like a human body, and we need lots of different sorts of bits. And I think it's just too easy to look like everything else.
Yeah, you and I have done a bit of work on this recently, haven't we? And I think for me, in my curiosity, this is one of the most interesting and biggest learning journeys I've had while I've been here, because we've been in our churches, we've been looking at the various different ways that people need access, not just simply kind of getting in and getting out, but coming up to Holy Communion, hearing the sermon, giving the sermon. That's right, giving communion, listening. So, and there's lots of clergy, as you know, like yourself, who have various different kind of levels of needs. So, getting this right is really important, because as you told me once, there's a lot of people who will not come to church because they can just see either on the website or on when they walk past or come past that they can't get in. Yeah. And we don't know who they are.
You never know who doesn't come to your church, do you? And I think that's a really important thing. It's not just about saying, you know, if somebody turns up, we'll get the ramp out. Oh, it's about saying front and centre, look, this church is open and easy and available, and you don't, you know, it's not a special thing. It's just, you can just come like everybody else.
But I think the other thing is as well, is that people who have different needs and what have you, is they add so much to the worship and to the community, is that Jesus says that the most important people in our society are the people who society sees are the weakest. And that is at the core of it. Like my son was saying yesterday, and my wife was saying, they have a couple of, he calls them special people, and I think that's nice, that is, who came to church with their carers and what have you, and one of them had Santa earmuffs on, and that's brilliant though, because that sort of adds something wonderful, because it's something different, isn't it?
Jesus pointed
at... But it's accepted then, isn't it? That's great though, isn't it?
It is about us, and that's that real danger when we think about church, that we are, you know, that disabled people are a group of people to be ministered to. Whereas actually we're missing out so much on the ministry of all sorts of different people. I mean, there are lots of people who become disabled later in life, but there are also people who are born disabled. And well, just in the same way as Jesus picked up children that people were saying, oh, they're in the way, it's too much effort, it's not very efficient. And Jesus said, God chose what is weak to shame the strong.
We have a couple in our church, I say a couple, 2 people, with adults with learning difficulties who come every week. And they're so lovely, and particularly David, who comes, who I guess he's about 30, and he always has a big grin on his face, and he's always the one who wants to take part in everything. So, you know, it's not legal to have your bands read at our church if David's not there saying, I agree, they should get married. And at the end of the service, you know, he goes around and he'll tells everyone, you're the best and you're my... He has a lot of favourites. And, you know, and it's just the most encouraging thing to have somebody like that in church. He's just not afraid of saying you know, how much he loves being there and how much he loves the people there, and we're all a bit buttoned up and you know, whatever. And it's just it makes such a difference to our church community.
Everybody who comes to church, no matter who they are, is bringing something vitally important to that community. And all of us, no matter where we are bringing something vitally important. And the thing is if we have this sort of thing where we categorise certain people as, you know, you have a disability, you do not, you are this, you are that, it's a lot more fluid than that.
Of course it is. Of course it is. Particularly all those invisible disabilities. Actually, you know, and living in a human body. It does affect our faith. Our body is affecting our faith all the time, and so we need to do a much better job at talking about this stuff as well, so that the story of our faith just keeps coming with the story of our bodies. So it matters a lot in terms of how we do our worship. There's all sorts of really creative, straightforward solutions to lots of issues that exclude people.
We're in Interregnum. We had a retired vicar taking communion on Sunday. Dodgy knees. He said, I'm coming up here, I'm sitting in this chair at the top and I'm not moving, everything's coming this way.
Yeah.
It did, it was fine.
Yeah.
People are, sadly, you usually have to be dressed like this to be able to say, I can't do that, I need it done differently. And actually, you know, I was already in training in church before I thought it was all right to sit down during the Eucharistic prayer. I'm someone who sometimes uses a wheelchair and sometimes doesn't, depending on how my body is that day. And even still, as a priest, I'm really aware that people just don't like things being done differently, but actually if things aren't creative and open and genuinely inclusive of genuinely people's gifts, which often look quite different to what we think of as gifts, then really the church is not being herself.
But when you came here first off last year, isn't it, when you started off as a curate, and we put in the ramp and what have you, and we finished off the last bits of the accessibility programme we had for the church. Is one of the greatest things was that people who were in real pain when they kneeled down for communion but felt as though they had to, because that's the way they had to do it. But in seeing you come here and saying, actually, like, I can't, and that's okay. Now we have people who feel confident in standing up. And I think that's a real gift to us as a church community.
Sometimes it's just about giving people permission explicitly, isn't it? So in my church, for example, often when a hymn is being introduced, the person doing it will say, let's stand if we're able. And then it's fine if you're not able. You know, and for some people that's every week, and some people it's just some weeks, depending how they feel. They know they're allowed to just sit down during the hymns.
There has to be a shift, I think, in our thinking within the church. It's okay not to know about these things. I think it's not okay not to listen when you hear about them. And what I found is that the changes you have to make are actually not that big. There's quite a few little ones, and you have to keep on learning, but that's the same for life.
You've also got experts who can tell you what works, because anybody who lives with any kind of difficulty has already creatively solved those problems in order to work around stuff. But the same way that my nan used to work out how to hang out the washing using a trolley and a pair of grippers. And so actually I'm just as capable of discriminating against somebody with a disability as anybody else. And presuming to know what's going to help other people definitely is not the right way to go about it. But there is an awkwardness about talking about this stuff, and people are afraid of getting it wrong, and the language is difficult. So I think if we also make it all right to just say, I talk about being disabled, other people talk about being differently abled, but actually if it's all right to come as you are to meet God, and that is always the message, and we have to show that and say that in all sorts of different ways, consistently.
And that's a great place to end, isn't it? I think that is what we're about, is saying, you know, everybody is welcome. We, as churches, we ought to be welcoming and encouraging people to come as they are, and being willing to think about, to listen, to make whatever changes we need to, and where possible, I think, to try and do that proactively. You know, and even if we get it wrong, to listen and try again. And as you say, Howell, it's because everybody is valuable in the church. Everybody is a gift. Everybody is given gifts. That's what's lovely about 1 Corinthians 12. We're all given gifts for the benefit of the whole church, and so we should be welcoming and accepting all those gifts that God gives us. If you have thoughts about that, if you've had bad experiences, good experiences, we'd love to hear from you. See you next week.
So So thanks for watching TGI Monday, and don't forget, if you have any questions, please send them in via our website on tgimonday.show. Follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram and everything else.